Miss Mary, I'm so excited to sit down with you today and share your book, Uplifting One Life at a Time. You guys can find this book. It's about, 167 pages. You can find it on Amazon. They can also find it at
Barnes & Noble, online only.
Barnes & Noble?
Online.
But also, your website is
encouraginglife.com.
encouraginglife.com. And when we also put together your video, we'll run links so people can get to you and they can find your book.
Sure.
So how long did it take you to write this book?
Well, I started about end of 2009, early 2010, like I told you, when I was grieving my brother's death. And so I just took notes. I had a spiral notebook, and over the months and a couple of years, when I think about something, sometimes you'll see quotes when you read it that are off TV shows.
So you said, my philosophy is, if you like yourself, others will like you. If others do not like you, don't worry. You like you, and I like you. Most importantly, God likes you.
Yes. There's so many things I talk about, of course, but one of the things I talk about is choosing whose opinions matter. And one of my quotes is, the only opinions which matter are from the people who matter. I have a mental list in my head of the opinions that matter to me, and it's the people in my life who have come to know me, truly care about me, and have my best interest at heart. I've had times over the years with my mother, with some friends, and some co-workers over the years, every area of my life, where someone has thought and said something about me that's just not true.
Oh, haven't we all?
Yeah. And so a lot of times that can boggle us down, that can depress us or whatever.
You can't get that one thing you're talking about, that people don't even realize it, because I think sometimes they voice an opinion. They may say like, have you gained a few pounds? Did you do something to your hair? Is that a new dress? And just their mannerism in which they articulate this, it's so insulting that we don't take it as a compliment. And let me tell you something, you can go to bed with that on your mind.
That's right. I have a quote taped to the monitor in my office at work that helps me on things like this. It's not my quote, it's just one I read somewhere. And it says, focus on the truth and look straight ahead. So that when I start, another thing I talk about is, you can't control what thoughts come to your mind, because things are just going to come. Mm-hmm. But you can control how long they dwell there.
Or
yes, speak them.
Yeah.
So one of the other things I talk about is, when those things come to you, whether it's people saying lies about you, believing something that's not true, something's oppressing you, something you just think of on your own that suddenly you become depressed about, you couldn't help the thought came, but you controlled how long it lingered. Mm-hmm. So if you can start work on being true to yourself and taking care of yourself and stopping those thoughts. There was a time several years ago, about 12 or 14 years ago, that I went through a period of depression. And I was going through some things. I came up with 4 or 5 quotes, and I printed them out and I taped them everywhere. In my kitchen, in my bathroom, at work. And
just like encouraging mm-hmm. words.
So that every time I started to dwell, everybody has to find what helps.
So you're saying that being depressed, you tape these in places, almost words of affirmation or daily encouragement.
And they were personal to me. They were quotes that I made up. They weren't quotes I found somewhere. They were quotes I created.
So you're saying,
to fit my situation, the things that were harming me. You're
saying that then you would go to your bathroom, or you would go to your refrigerator, and these quotes that you had created for your own self-support and upliftment were already placed there for you as encouragement.
Exactly. And
wow.
I've also done that with friends.
Okay, so I just want to read a quote in your book, Miss Mary. I personally believe that people who are happy in their lives do not spend time gossiping about others and speaking critically.
I also have a theory about people who do that. Okay, a belief. Those who spend all their time gossiping about you, criticizing you, judging you, my belief that I've developed on that is, you're their distraction. They have...
From really themselves?
Yes. Those people who are the negative, the judgmental, the criticals, those people who have nothing but negative to say and just want to talk about you, because they have stuff inside of them they don't want to face or deal with or even acknowledge. So as long as they can focus on other people, abuse other people, talk negatively of other people, they can avoid having a look inside. You are their distraction. So again, it speaks to them and their character and who they are, and not to you.
So where do you see yourself in 10 years? Where's this little girl that I assume you love now?
Yes.
Accept her wholeheartedly and all that she's been through. Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Self-employed, full-time motivational speaker or empowerment speaker, traveling the world, different states, different countries, and just talking to individuals and groups and just encouraging everybody. I want to take that hundreds to millions. That's my goal.
I would be pretty safe to say you're probably up in the thousands right now, because listening to your story, God just coming into your life and always here's the thing I've always said. We think sometimes a church is a building, but sometimes it's just where 2 or 3 people are gathered together, sitting on a couch or in a quiet spot.
Right here, right now.
And it's so true. And I think what you were given out of your circumstance, which wasn't the best scenario possible that we all would have planned for any child, but I think what you were given was really an ability to help people, and I'm sure you have helped the masses around you all through high school, it sounds like, into your 20s, and still yet today, these people are coming to you for some sort of mentorship, empowerment. I guess I want to go back. I've got this beautiful picture of this little girl, and sitting here, we're gonna show this to our viewers because it's Miss Mary sitting. How were you? 5?
Probably I would say about 5, probably, I'm guessing.
5 years old.
Guessing.
Had you begin experiencing your sexual abuse past at this time, or is she still that innocent little girl?
Well, about 5 is when the first one happened.
Yeah. Because she looks just as strong and confident sitting there with her legs crossed. She got a little boss in her, you can tell. So I guess I want to know, what happened to her?
When I was 5, my mother and brother and I were living in a boarding house, and the woman who owned the boarding house that my mother rented the rooms from, she was also our babysitter. And so my mother would be at work and I'd be there being babysat, and there was a man there, I don't remember who he was, I was 5, that he molested me at least once. I only have one clear memory. And it was, I have a belt, if you tell anybody, I'll spank you. Mm-hmm. Was a 5-year-old, that's all I know. I don't want to get a spanking.
Sure.
I only had that one memory, so I know it's that one time. And then a couple of years later, I was about 7. Now we were living in an apartment. Mother got her own place, and now she's dropping us off at a babysitter's in the afternoon, and we're staying there because she waitress afternoon and evening. We're staying there, my 2 brothers now and I, until late at night to where we're asleep, and she comes off from work and scoops us up and takes us home. My babysitter had all kinds of friends over, a lot of them were guys. And sometimes I woke up from naps with a guy molesting me. I don't know who that was, I don't remember. I have 2 or 3 or so memories of that, so it was at least a couple of times. And
so at what point in time did your mother get married? Did your stepfather come into your life?
He moved in when I was 8 as her boyfriend, and they married a year later when I was 9.
And so did the sexual abuse start immediately?
When he was living with us and I was 8 years old, there was one experience that he didn't actually touch me, but it was late at night. My mom's at work because she waitress, and we were in his bedroom watching TV. He was sitting in his bed, and I was sitting in a chair on the floor next to the bed. And I could tell he wasn't dressed because you could see from the side view that he didn't have anything on. He had the blanket pulled up. Mm-hmm. He was trying to persuade me to get up in the bed with him. He kept saying, "Aren't you cold? Don't you want to get under the blanket?" And I was only 8 years old. Mm-hmm. I didn't really understand the full significance, but I knew I didn't want to do that. I knew that was a no. And so I just kept saying no, 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 and he got mad at me. And so then I left his room and went to my room because I got frustrated. He came in there and got me and spanked me. Mm-hmm. Took me back in his room, sat me against the wall like I'm in a corner, and I had to sit there till my mother came home from work.
Wow. So, at what point in time did you begin to tell him no? The sexual abuse started.
Well, so they got married when I was 9. We were in Atlanta, Georgia. A few months later, he brought us here to Texas. Again, I'm 9 years old. It was about, I think about 11, I'm going to guess, is the one time he actually touched me. I allowed it to happen. My mother was home in another room, and I don't understand why he would do that when she was home, but he did. And when she came into the room later, she just had a feeling that something had happened. So the next day when I came in from school, she sat me down and she pulled it out, and she made me tell her. So I told her what happened, but she didn't know about the first two. So now that she's opened this door, I said, well, he's not even the first one. And she's like, what do you mean? So I go back to the first one when I'm 5, and she got so upset and started crying that I just stopped and didn't tell her about the second one. I was
You saw her reaction.
So now I'm protecting her.
Okay, so you just said, let me back you up, because you just said, I allowed it to happen.
That one time, yes.
Why do you take ownership for that?
Not as an allowing, I just didn't know to say no yet. But for some reason after that I did. Like, I started developing early.
So you're saying when he sexually abused you, you didn't say no?
That one time, right.
So maybe that was a true thought, what you just shared with us. Because I think that's part of the guilt, that being a victim of sexual abuse, that I have too felt myself. I allowed this to happen. I had to learn a long time ago. I did not allow this to happen. I didn't even know what was going on. How can you make a conscious decision if your mind can't even conceive what's happening? So you're saying to me, the one time that it happened, then you found your voice and you did begin to say no.
Yes, because I also started developing early, so there was a few times, at least a couple of times, that he would ask me to take off my top and let him see me, and I just said no. And he actually touched me once, but there were several years of non-touching stuff where he tried to spy on me or catch me or ask me to do something. And the first time I gave in, the time after that, I kept saying no, no. As a child, I don't know where that came from. I don't know. You know, I was 12 and 13 and 14, all this. I said no.
So you're saying, let's talk about this, because I did not know this till you just said it, and it's never been brought out before, so I'm feeling the need to go there, because there's going to be somebody watching this, and you just said something powerful. You know, even though we're all survivors, and sexual abuse is sexual abuse to me. All of our circumstances are different. So when someone hits home with something that we haven't discussed, I like to stay there for just a second, so stay there with me.
Okay.
What you said to me was that this perpetrator, he had sexually abused you, but because you were saying no, instead of physically touching you, he began to mess with you. He began to mind control you. So you were kind of looking over your shoulder. You're saying that he was watching you get dressed. He kind of had that creepiness about him.
One day I was about to undress in a bathroom to take a bath, and I just had this creepy feeling like somebody was watching me. And I looked, and there was a hole in the wall. You know how sometimes a door knob can hit and make a hole in a wall? And the other side of that wall was my bedroom closet. And I went over and I leaned down and looked, and I saw his eyeball. And so for the rest of my childhood in that house, which is several more years, I just always put a washcloth in that hole every time I took a bath. So that's one example. There's times I sometimes wish that I'd had, a better childhood. There's times I wish I had had nurturing and all that. But when I get on those thoughts, the very first thing I think of, but I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. If I had had that happier childhood I wished I'd had, then I'd be an average, everyday person, probably doing some good things, but not touching lives. I've helped hundreds of people since high school. I literally have. The cool part, and you'll see this in my book, is when I was suicidal in high school, there was a couple of times that I was, late at night when you're a teenager, there's times you stay awake that everybody else in the house is asleep. There was a couple of those nights that I sat in my bedroom floor crying my eyes out, and I just wanted to die. I didn't feel loved. My past was miserable. My future was miserable. And when you're a teenager, everything's magnified. So all I could see for the future was miserable. I couldn't see anything positive. So each of those times I held a knife or a pair of scissors and I got ready to stab myself. People can say what they will about hearing God's voice or believing in God, but here's what I know. I heard him say two things. First, your life's going to get better. Well, discern a voice when you hear it. That's not Satan because he's not trying to help me. That's not my own voice because I don't know to say that. Every voice in your head is God, Satan, or yourself. If it's not Satan, it's not me, it's God. The second thing he said to me was, I'm going to use you to help others. So I'm sitting here thinking, okay, because I want to die. I don't want to be here. How can I help anybody else? I didn't see it. But I've helped hundreds of people since high school.
But that's part of the story.
Yes.
You had to, I think us as spiritual beings, we have to, the greatest part is the journey. You can't help, you're no good to help anybody else unless you understand what they've been through or what they felt. Now, I have never experienced depression or contemplated suicide, but I have my own issues.
Everybody's got issues.
As a survivor.
Sure.
But I want to say this: the hundreds of people that you've helped, I bet it's very common, and you're able to understand. They probably bring to you for some sort of inspiration, encouragement, that they too have been suicidal, or they have contemplated suicide, or maybe they've been depressed. And you can't help if you've never been in someone's shoes. You can't help them.
Right. As an author, I've created a business name for myself and a logo, and my business is life, lifting individuals for empowerment. Because to truly encourage someone is not to help somebody for a moment or a day. It's to help someone to become empowered to bring change.
Change their life.
And to help them to equip themselves with the tools to know that they can empower themselves.
Well, thank you, Miss Mary.
Thank you.
I've enjoyed getting to know you through social media and follow you. And
Same here.
Are you going to sign this book for me?
Of course.
Okay, well, good, because here I got a pen. So I'm going to have you sign it for me.
That's so awesome.
Because I want to take it home and I want to read it all instead of just skimming